Well, hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the Miss Michaela Mae Show. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. And today we are going to talk about the three things that I learned from writing my first memoir. And the first thing that I want to talk about is don't let anyone that you know read the book until it is published. I got really lucky and I had wrote about I think it was a 10 to 15,000 word essay. I actually think it was about 20,000 words. And there was a section that was really private that I wanted to keep for just me that I ended up deleting out of the essay. I actually now have published that essay in a short book. So it's actually available on Amazon as well. It is called A Trip with the Birds, my first two experiences with MDMA therapy. But I went and did MDMA therapy, wrote these essays about my experience. A lot of people will call them a trip report and wrote them. And I had this like guilt thing in the back of my head. And when I thought about it, so a little bit, if you're new to me, a little bit of my background is I experienced sexual assault when I was 12 and the case ended up going to court. And there ended up being two cases that went to court. Read my book. Actually, that is not in my book, The Barn Off of Colfax Lane. The Barn Off of Colfax Lane, which is my first memoir, is just about the sexual assault I experienced with a horse trainer. So I was going to say, you can read my book if you want the whole story, but the whole story will be out in memoir number 2, which is coming soon. But essentially, I had two cases go to court, and one of the ADAs had said, because I didn't want my parents in the room, which I will talk about more in the second book, but I didn't want my parents in the room. So my parents actually didn't know the details of what had happened because I didn't want them to know. I didn't want to share it with them. I didn't talk to my parents about that stuff. And my ADA said, it's better coming from you than from them. I'm like, well, I ain't telling them about it. And he's like, I would like to sit down with your mom and tell her and like go over your testimony and read it and whatever. And I was like, you can do it, but I ain't doing it. And that had kind of stuck in the back of my head that it's better for my mom to hear it from me than from anybody else, to not find out with the public, if you will. And because of that, when I wrote this essay about my two MDMA trips, I had let her read it. Not a good idea. Don't do it. But I'm so thankful that it happened so that I didn't do it with my book, because whether well intended or not, people do have their own perceptions of things. It didn't go that way. Well, it didn't go that way in your world, but it did go that way in my world. And not right, wrong, or indifferent. Everyone's entitled to their truth or your truth or whatever truth we're on these days. The point is, our memoirs are supposed to be for us. They're supposed to be about us, our journey. If someone wants to write their own memoir from their own perspective of that same situation, they are free to do so. Freedom of speech, free will, go ahead and do that. But for you, your book needs to be through your lens, through your perspective, and should not have influence of anybody else, especially the people that are in the story. So I learned that lesson with my essay, so I didn't have to learn it with my memoir. And I want you to learn it from me so you don't have to do it with your memoir. If you have people you want to do a beta read on the book, perfectly cool. I think that's perfectly acceptable. Go find people who don't know you, ask your editor, pay strangers, get them Starbucks. Like, I'm sure if you post anonymously in your local Facebook group and say, hey, I'm looking for people to beta read my book. I want it to be people who don't know me. I'm posting anonymously because I don't want these people to know. I will send you a DM if you're interested, or whatever, and I'll pay you $50 in Starbucks or Amazon gift cards or whatever arrangement you have working out. Because if you want beta readers for your book before you publish it, totally fine. Just do not let it be anyone you know. Because even someone who may not want you to alter the story, maybe they weren't in the book as much as they thought they would be, and they're a little sad or a little like, let them read it when it comes out. My editing teacher, when I was in film school, he said sometimes, when you have kids, you let them touch the pot, you let them get burned, like you kind of let them like learn from themselves, right? Sometimes when a kid touches the pot, it's too hot and it would cause too much damage, and you don't let them touch the pot. He said, I'm going to treat you guys the same in school. He's like, but I am telling you, when I tell you don't touch the pot on this one, listen loud and clear. Don't touch the pot because you're going to get burned so bad. We're going to be past the point of rescue. And that's how I feel about this first tip. Don't touch the pot. Don't experiment with it. Don't go near it. Look at it from across the room and go the other way. That's how I feel about this first tip. So, with that being said, my second tip is to get trauma support. It's kind of interesting. I was just thinking, I'm like, here's what I learned, but really, this is my tips for writing, my 3 tips for writing your first memoir. 3 things I learned slash 3 tips I have for you, because they're basically one and the same at this point. But the second one is to get trauma support, because whatever you think you're healed from, no, you're not. The moment that thing goes onto the page, the amount of stuff it's going to bring up that you thought you had dealt with, I can't even explain to you. I have spent, and for some people this is a lot, for other people this is not. It's all relative. In personal development and healing, I've spent that I'm aware of around $40,000. I have done a lot of stuff to address my stuff, if you will, and nothing compares to writing. And there's some things that I've thought about this a lot. Like, okay, I've done psychedelics, I've done the talk therapy, I've done microdosing, I've done personal development conferences, I've done emotional, it's called spiritual guidance, but it's basically, I guess you would call like inner child work, releasing trapped emotions. Like, I've done that for the last 3 or 4 years. And then I put this thing onto paper, and all the things that I'd worked on, it just brought up different flavors of it, different shades of it, in ways that I hadn't looked at it before. So I've really thought a lot about it. Like, okay, I've done all, it's not like I'm going in here like, excuse my French, but for lack of a better term, it's not like I'm going in here raw dogging it. It's not like I'm going and writing this book not having done anything about my trauma, right? I've actually done quite a bit. And so it shocked me. I call the first draft, some people call the first draft the vomit draft or the shitty first draft. I called my first draft the rage pages, because the amount of rage your girl still had in her body, again, with all the therapy I've done, with all the dancing and singing and screaming and somatic work at personal development seminars, and the psychedelic hours and psychedelic journeys, did not know that rage was still there. Not a clue. So obvious afterwards, but during it, when I was getting the rage pages out, when every other word in my book said fuck, no idea. No idea. And so that is this, it's like, have trauma support. Like, I had it. I was lucky that I had it, because I was definitely going in with the mindset of, I've done the work, I'm good. Michaela, you're hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Yeah, it's just different. And again, I don't think I've fully finished this thought out. The thing that I've thought about the most is, I think there's something about looking at our story objectively, because once it gets onto pen and paper, or even type of screen type, if you call pen to paper, what would you call? I don't know. If you have a descriptor for it, please email me and let me know. But hands to screen, there we go. We'll go with that. When we get it hands to screen and it's objective and it's on a piece of paper, all of a sudden it's not your story living in your own head. You could go read that story in another book, because you may, like, for me, it was my normal, like, going through what I went through with the sexual assault experience that's in my book, The Barn Off of Colfax Lane. Like, going through that, it's like, that was just my normal. That was just my everyday. I had nothing to compare it to. But the moment it's on paper, now I'm reading about a 12-year-old girl who went through something quite horrific. And so that objectivity made me wrestle an alligator in a way that I'd never wrestled one before. For lack of a better term, you can wrestle an alligator face to face, or on top of it, or side to side. But then the moment you get underneath that alligator, it's a different battle. And that's how I felt about the seeing my story objectively. It's a different battle. So it's a different wrestle with that alligator. So have some kind of trauma support in place. Like I said, I had the spiritual guidance, emotional work, emotional therapy work in, and I had friends, because I think you need 3 people. I think you need trauma support. I think you need a really good editor. And I think you need a friend that will just listen no matter what. You get the support that you need. But those are the 3 things that 3 kinds of support I would get in place: is someone that really knows trauma, someone that can just be your friend when you need them to be your friend, and then a really good book editor. And if you're not at the point where you don't want to hire an editor, I would still get a 3rd person in place of some sort. Okay, so that's my second tip or advice. Things I learned: get trauma support. And then the last thing that I want to talk about today is, And I don't really have like how the three things that I learned. I don't know that this is going to turn into a tip because I really don't really have a tip. I really don't really have a tip for you. Exactly, precisely. I don't because I still don't know what to do about this one. You will feel exposed, like when the dreams that you see in movies all the time about someone being naked on a stage. That's what it feels like, just absolutely exposed. And I don't have any advice. I'm just warning you. That's the tip. It's just that I don't know that there's, and if you are another author and you happen to be watching this, if you have a tip for feeling less exposed and less vulnerable, please let me know. Or also just be honest. If you wrote your memoir 10 years ago and people are still buying and reading it, just tell me. It never gets better. You just get kind of used to it. Because that might be it. I don't know. But even someone had reached out to me that had bought my book and was talking to me about it. I'm like, yeah, I still just feel exposed, which is interesting because again, I went through the court cases. I've done a bunch of exposure of me talking about this stuff, and it was still. And to be fair, I had never talked about it in the way that I had talked about it or how I had talked about it, so that could be part of it. I was never that open and that honest and that actually sharing the thoughts that was going on in my brain. That could be it, but yeah, that's my last thing I got for you today. You will feel exposed. So, anyway, with that being said, thank you for listening to another episode of I just, the Miss Michaela Mae show. I'm very tired today. I promised myself I would get these out, and it was really important for me to get these out today because I have other things scheduled this week that I don't have time to record. So I recorded two podcasts today. I have two podcasts. I have a podcast for holistic healing protocols, which is the Western Hippie podcast, and then I have this podcast more for author, and then also potentially cultural and political stuff. I'm not sure how deep we're going to get into that yet. So I have the two. So I just almost signed off to my last podcast. So anyway, with that being said, thank you for listening to me and my little bit of deliriousness today. I'm your host, Miss Michaela Mae, here with my corgis, Tank and Willie. I hope you are having a great day. If you are on the book writing journey, I hope that it is going well. If you found value out of this episode or you have a tip for the hands to screen or another name for it, I would love to hear it. If you could rate and review the show, that would be absolutely amazing. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Miss Michaela Mae show, and we will see you and talk to you in the next episode.